Fresh Labs live show today. This is the first time I think we've done an episode like this in person, right?
Yes. We are usually apart. I'm usually coming from Seattle. Johnny, you're in.
I'm here in Texas. So it's nice to have you here. This is a special episode because you're here. We're in person, and we're going to change the format a little bit because of that.
Yeah. We are going to talk about the Q1, Q2 of 2022. And
Q2, Q3, Q4? Or like reviewing back, yeah.
Yeah, we're reviewing back, just looking back what happened for the first half of the year. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to look into the end of the year of 2022 and see what we think is going to happen for the rest of the year.
Yep.
Cool.
Great. So yes, I'm Johnny Rodriguez, Strategic Innovation Director for Fresh Consulting.
And I'm the Technical Innovation Director at Fresh Consulting as well.
Yep. So if you have questions, we'll do our best to field those. Another reason that this is slightly unique today is we don't have our normal setup where we're at our home studios, kind of set up with lighting and studio lighting and good cameras and all that. We're actually running this pretty mobile today. So we don't actually have access to a lot of the back and forth chatting today, but we still welcome the questions so that we can answer those, post live event today. We'll definitely want to go in and answer and do that kind of thing. But yeah, welcome to Texas. I mean, I think you've been here now a few times.
Yeah, a few times now, and each time grabbing brisket, enjoying it.
Yep.
Very unique and really tasty. We just had brisket in fact.
Yeah, we had probably the best brisket I've ever had. We don't have any partnership with brisket companies, so we won't mention them. Maybe we should. That would be great.
How to build a brisket maker with the IoT.
Oh yeah, to do the perfect brisket.
Perfect brisket.
We'll follow the master class from Franklin himself, and see if we can make a robot out of it. No. Yeah, that's interesting. It's interesting because we've talked about robotics before, and how a lot of the worry with robotics and automation is that it's going to take jobs, right? But then there's like little details, right? How you do things. Sometimes things and ingredients, for example, aren't really measured to perfection. Sometimes it's like depending on the heat, you might want to do a little bit more or less, depending on the fat of the meat. So there's so many variables that play into it. So it's just interesting to think about.
Yeah.
Won't replace everything, right? The creativity and the artistic part of things are hard to replace.
Yeah, I think that's it. A lot of mass production are now possible with the robotics, identifying there's some defect on the food. I know, in fact, in Japan, they mass produce bento box.
A bento box.
Yeah, and then they will inspect. But there's always a human who's adding ingredients, but they also have an inspection process where the robots are trained to look for something missing on the bento box. But I think when it comes to something that takes 48 hours, like a brisket, and you have to touch it to feel if it's done. I don't know if the visual inspections are good enough sometimes. Maybe you have to sometimes feel it, right, to see if it's soft enough or hard. Or you have to render the fat, and then you have to kind of poke it in and see, and you have to turn it around.
Based off of that, right?
And building specialized robot for that might be more expensive than to just have people train.
Yeah, at that point.
Yeah.
I don't know if you find yourself doing that as somebody that's in emerging tech and loving the fact that you could build, you're capable of building almost anything you want from the software side. If you ever find yourself thinking, I could build something that will simplify this, but instead of doing the 1 hour effort, you end up spending 15 hours building the thing that helps you do and then you do it once.
Just you do it once, Or if it doesn't work out, or the climate is a little different today. A lot of chefs would talk about depending on the climate, I change how much flour, the water, and salt that they're mixing, right? So it comes out different every day.
My grandma would argue that they were missing the ingredient of love. It's why are these tortillas so different than the ones I make? I followed the recipe. And she's like, in Spanish, mijo. It's because there's love in this recipe. So until robots can bring in the love aspect. No, I'm kidding. No, but it's interesting. It's an interesting conversation. I think that kind of leads us into some of the conversation, like you said, of Q1, Q2 of this year.
Yeah, we've seen a lot happen and we just want to quickly go back a little bit in the past and what we've seen. And John, if you could cover what happened in the Metaverse a little bit, I want to check in to make sure our audio and everything's
Absolutely.
working. Yeah, so I'll leave it to Johnny.
Absolutely. So yeah, lots of interesting things happening, I think, with the Metaverse. We've heard a lot of companies make statements already. Obviously, 2021 being a big year for Meta and their name change, as well as their kind of focus, and Mark Zuckerberg kind of talking about the fact that they want to be a Metaverse first company in the next 5 years, right? So that was like a big shift. I think because it was so public, the Metaverse became something on people's radar for the first time last year, right? So if we're looking at this year, right, starting January, Q1, Q2 of this year, we saw quite a big rise of user adoption on platforms like Decentraland, one of the top kind of Metaverse environments. This is a blockchain-based Metaverse environment. And so we saw lots of users kind of come that way. The Sandbox being another big player, probably again one of the top 5, highest user base, daily active, monthly active users. Even though that's still in a beta, they went out of alpha and are into beta. They had quite a lot of user adoption, lots of branding opportunities. But yeah, I guess excuse me, outside of like users testing out the Metaverse, we had quite a few big brands, large companies, publicly traded companies that have started to dabble or market inside of these Metaverse environments. The main places we've seen these are in the 2 that I mentioned. So Decentraland, we've had quite a few there. We saw Samsung earlier this year do their flagship store in New York, the A37X. They did a version of that inside of Decentraland and gamified it, gave out NFTs. They also did their launch of their the cell phone, their smartphone was also launched, and they did the live event inside of Decentraland. So we saw Samsung play a part in that. We've seen other organizations like JP Morgan, get a presence in Decentraland. Their initial rollout was a little shaky. They claim that they were the first banking company to be in the Metaverse. So it was interesting to see them create a space, have an environment where you could see the CEO on the wall, their picture frame, and then a lion that was kind of animated, kind of looping through, and you could see the lion inside of the building. And outside of that, it was pretty light. But they have since kind of improved some of that experience. So we've seen banking companies, we've seen like big technology companies like Samsung get involved. We've also seen if we go to Roblox as one of the bigger platforms out there for gaming first, open world second. Roblox has had drastic increase of users in the first 2 quarters, but also more and more brands partnering and doing skins, handbags. Like the digital marketplace, the digital economy in Roblox is insane. Same with Fortnite. We've seen quite a lot happen there. Coca-Cola partnered with Fortnite and did their Coca-Cola Bite drink, which is one that I think I have 2 of those still in my office. You should taste that while you're here, by the way.
Oh, okay.
I'll let you get a chance to see what a pixel tastes like. According to them, that's what a pixel tastes like. So you see Coca-Cola jump into platforms like that, right? Fortnite. And so quite a lot of big major brands started to dabble and market into these environments. And we're still seeing some play in that space. Not a lot of small businesses or medium-sized business jumping in, but a lot of curious users. So quite a lot of new, I would say, I think I've seen at least, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this, at least 100 new Metaverse, immersive world kind of experiences that have been launched, mainly in the browser, some on mobile phones, but mainly in browser. And we've seen of those 100, maybe about 10 to 15 of those that are blockchain based, and the remaining one of those being on the browser. So that's been interesting from a Metaverse standpoint. So yeah, there's a lot of things happening there. As we talk about Q3, Q4, it'll be interesting. Some of the stats there with cryptocurrency and things like that, kind of being in a little bit of a slide and going downhill, and a lot of question around crypto and how that's affected the Metaverse. So I think we'll get into some of that as well. But that's a little bit of a highlight.
Yeah, I think that might be a good segment to what happened in the NFT world, because at the beginning of the year, or last year through the beginning of the year, I think we've seen a lot of hype with NFT. But as we expected, I think 90% of what's out there, including NFT crypto, is I think expected to kind of taper down, because I think it's like a .com boom where right when
we talked about this.
We talked about this
in Q1 or Q2, right? We basically said this is what we predict. It's not gonna last that long, and a lot of projects won't continue on, right?
And it'll fail at the same time, because just like a .com boom, we've seen like with a lot of hype, with insane valuation built on no foundation, there will be a lot of hypes and people starting to read the news about how this NFT sold for this or that. They just want to jump on and start selling without substance behind it, right? And we did see good example of NFT where there was some substance behind, like the world's first NFT restaurant, where if you have the NFT, you can reserve, and you have to have NFT to be the member, basically VIP membership. It's a private dining. We've also seen an NFT or maybe DAO club trying to buy up a golf course. What were some of the other?
I mean, Q1. I was gonna say in Q1, Q2. I mean, we saw. Massive projects. Some flopped, some didn't. We saw some scams, right? Like you would expect with a lot of this new thing, like a lot of this new tech, and is that sometimes there are elements of that. But some projects flopped. Tons of hype. It had celebrity endorsements. I know at least a handful that had a ton of hype where unknown people paid celebrities to go promote it on Instagram stories, and do a single tweet, and they got paid $1 million or something like crazy like that, and then them being a flop, and so there's definitely moments like that. And then on the flip side, a lot of creative, successful things. We talked about like the football NFT collection. One of the ones I was excited about. You mentioned,
we have also seen NFT that ties to physical, where if you buy enough NFT clothes on the Gap, you actually get the physical hoodie. And we also seen, I think, the opposite, where if you buy a physical thing, you also get the digital.
I think that's definitely still a smart thing to be doing. But we saw that with Gap. I think Adidas has a version where you can redeem something later. Nike's did a version of that with shoes. I think to the reverse, you buy the physical shoes, you get the digital in other platforms.
Prada, Herbie, Forever 21.
Coca-Cola did it with their drinks.
So a lot of brands. I'm surprised they are big brands too. I thought maybe the small brands will be more nimble, but I think big brands are probably now aware of investing in the labs, in the emerging tech, by probably creating a group of people, right, in a department where their task is to figure those things out and launch it and be competitive. I think that's why they know that even though they're big companies that are usually known to be slower than startups, I think we see a lot of big companies now getting in with a lot of money behind. And I think oftentimes they're working with the startups.
That are doing the projects. Absolutely. There's definitely elements of that have been happening. So, and we'll get into Q3, Q4, and some predictions there as it relates to NFTs. But definitely a big hype on the downhill at the end of Q2 for NFTs. So there's a lot of people that are sticking around, and a lot of people selling quite a lot. And I think just connected directly to the coin, like cryptocurrencies and coins. There's a direct correlation with NFT prices, right? Like Ethereum is one of the largest blockchains that has NFTs, right? So, I think about Bored Ape Yacht Club. They're probably the largest, most well-known NFT project to date. Most celebrities have that one. And the fact that, with cryptocurrency going down, Ethereum being now in the thousands instead of 3,000s, like at the beginning of January, a lot of the valuation of those have gone down, but a lot of celebrities just stuck around. They haven't been selling. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of continues. But I think a lot of the smaller projects haven't survived. So it's been interesting.
And I think a lot of times people forget that you need to build a good, solid community that supports not like the penny stock where people are not really, purchasing.
They're not invested.
Yeah, they're not really invested, right? They're just trying to make a quick bucks and leave. And there are some interesting meme where they say like, when your project is on the rise, you call everyone like, oh, we're family and we support each other. But as soon as the price of everything goes down, they're just like, we're not family.
Sell. Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
on the personal side, as it relates to NFTs, I think Q1 was a really like fruitful month, like 3 months, as it related to being able to invest in NFT projects and then be able to keep some and sell some and see profit from that. So that was like a really promising quarter of like, wow, this is really interesting to see how this is going to go into the future. That's where I think I had a lot of my friends and family say, what's going on with that? Like, tell me about it. And so people started to really figure that out at the end of Q2, and they're like, man, this is a bad idea, you know? And it's like, no, it's, you know, it's interesting. But I would say probably 90% of the ones that I personally invested in were more of the like interesting, personally invested kind of projects, less so about profit, but more about like, I'm interested in the utility type of this. Like, what benefits come with owning this NFT? Things like spatial Metaverse environments, right? That's an NFT thing that I've consistently continued to purchase. Exclusible was a big drop, and I was been watching that for months, and that was something I was in the line for, right? But those were not investment things that like, hey, I want to just flip that. So, yeah, definitely like for those that were invested in the projects, I think maybe it hasn't been affected them that much because it's not like they needed to sell them a lot, and they're getting a lot of the value that comes with the NFT as they've been invested. So anyway, that's on the NFT front.
Yeah, so we can also talk about the hardware projects we've seen. I think the most recent one that we've seen that was on a different level was the Mojo Vision. That was still like fresh in my mind with the contact lens. They can embed or wear it directly on your eyes so that you are carrying the technology with you in your eyes. And the founder themselves tried it on him successfully and then wore it for like a few hours, I think. Yeah, and that was like the freshest thing. But I think if we go back a little bit more, what were some of the highlight do you think we had? We've seen
for hardware.
Yeah, we've seen some Snapdragon trying to get into the wireless puck.
Yeah, the reference AR platform from Snapdragon. So we talked about that earlier this year. They released a version that was really slim, where a lot of the processing is in that you said, and a Bluetooth or wireless puck. So it's something you put in your back pocket, but it's tetherless or not tethered. So that was a big one from Snapdragon. I mean, a lot of rumors happened in Q1, Q2 about like leaks and stuff about, you know, Apple's mixed reality headset. Insights from Mark Zuckerberg about Project Cambria coming. We saw some demos in Q2 where he actually had it on and was showing what pass-through AR looks like in a mixed reality headset. We also saw Magic Leap launch this year from a hardware perspective from AR. So they launched their Magic Leap 2, and that was exclusively for developers. So they had a kind of small wave of people that got access to that. So that's kind of AR, VR kind of perspective. I'm trying to think about other things related to blockchain, Web3, hardware devices. I don't think there's much that stands out there.
Solana phone, maybe.
Solana phone, yeah.
They basically rebranded one of the phone that we never heard of as a Solana phone. And I think it's a way to potentially get more sales by rebranding. And Solana being one of the blockchain that wants to grow, right, as popular as Ethereum and become that token of exchanging NFTs and being used for games and everything. That kind of makes sense that if you want to get technology in the hands of users, why not build it into the phone? Because people end up discovering. For example, Samsung, I think they do a pretty good job baking in the software to the raw Android basis so that all the Samsung apps are available to the users, as opposed to them having to go to the store and download, right?
Yeah.
So if they crack the market in, I think there is a more interesting spread of awareness to the consumers.
I think that kind of covers most of like the main highlights. And by the way, almost like everything we've talked about, maybe everything we've talked about now for Q1, Q2, we have video content around this. So if you want to get a sense for like our excitement or hype around one of these particular things, even like our predictions for like Apple's MR headset. I know we talked about that, have a video and have a blog post on that. We talked about Project Cambria and some of the things they've been doing from a Horizon Worlds perspective, Horizon Home launch, that was another thing. So just, there's been quite a lot there. You can look at our YouTube channel and click us up at Fresh Labs. It does help to subscribe. We do have a community that we're building on LinkedIn where you can come and see as we're posting content, whether it's graphics or it's snippets from our live stream or the full live streams. You can find that over on LinkedIn. It's a showcase page called Fresh Labs as well.
Yeah, and if this is the first time you're seeing, this is a special episode that we're filming because we're together, but usually you would see more visual slides that you can follow us along.
Yep.
Yeah. Is there any part we missed, or should we go to the
we'll take a look here.
Side?
So I think we have, so this is the part I think we have on this particular episode as we talk about some of the future.
Oh yeah, the future. What we expect to see through the end of the year, Q3, Q4 of 2020.
Excitement.
Yeah,
and I'd love to go through some of yours because I know that my list was some overlaps, some differences.
Yeah.
And we've already started to cover some of those, but
well, we can start with Project Cambria.
Yeah.
I think the new name that is actually leaked is MetaQuest Pro.
Yeah, they said they found it in a line of code.
Yeah.
That was, so it wasn't, I guess it was a leak, if you want to call it that, or an accidental leak, right?
Yeah.
That happens a lot with Apple where they find the name of something because it's in a particular line of code.
Yeah. And typically it's correct, right?
Yeah.
Typically it's being correct. So MetaQuest Pro, I think, makes a lot of sense as a name because one, they are leaked to be selling it around like 1100, and Pro name suggests
it feels appropriate.
Yeah, because Project Cambria sounded like, is it like a separate line of business because it doesn't have the Quest in the name, right? But if it's supposed to be like more Pro version with additional sensors and additional capability, calling it Pro makes sense.
Yep.
And my prediction is that we still won't see the hardware until 2023, but I think a lot of the special vendors are going to get hands-on, just like Mark Zuckerberg had.
In Q4, do you think?
I think so. That we won't see personally, but I think they always work with, some special vendors to show off, right? When they launch, they want to have software ready. Just like all the gaming console, where you don't want to just announce PlayStation 5 without exclusive title, or the Xbox without exclusive. I think that's why Nintendo always have either Mario or Zelda game that goes along with it that fully showcase what's possible. So I assume before anybody else has access to it, it's some special vendors who has been working with them. Maybe it's the production of Beat Saber, or the drawing applications, and then they'll get access to it first. That we end up seeing the demo on the YouTube video, but I don't think consumer would have any access to it until maybe Q2
of next year. Interesting.
Is when I think it's ready for mass production and shipping. And this is not just the MetaQuest line, but we just hear a lot of other hardwares. For example, I pre-ordered the Steam Deck, which is the mini console device.
Have you not gotten it yet?
I haven't got it yet. They say Q3 of 2022 is when I can finally place an order, and then it might still take a couple months for it to be delivered. So I think just as an industry as a whole is very delayed on getting hands on to the chipset, right? And I bet they're tied to the same problem. So even if they could publish it today, as far as software and hardware spec goes, I don't know if they're ready to mass produce. But I want to hear your perspective.
Yeah, I think you're probably right on. My perspective is, I think it will launch before Christmas.
Okay.
I think it will launch before Christmas because I think they have to launch before Christmas. I think it'll be a small batch of orders that will sell out quickly.
Got it.
But I do agree that I think it will be in the hands of people before then. The only reason I say that is because Mark Zuckerberg has said that it will come out in 2022. But I don't know if I know enough about the history of Meta to say are they on time or not.
That's
like
true.
If it were Tesla, I'm a huge fan of Tesla. they're pretty late on their, if there's a prediction, it's going to be a year after that, 2 years, or
Usually
it might be later. So that it's more about like historically how on cue are they. So my prediction is yes, it's the Meta Quest Pro. I think it's going to be under $1,000. I think that they have to be under 1,000, even if it's a pro device.
Starting at $999.
Exactly. It'll be whatever the number is under. It might be $899 or $999 as a base model that has. It's going to be almost like pointless to buy the bottom base model because it's a pro. Right. But then they're going to have like the upgrades where it's going to say, hey, you can get more storage and this or that. So I think that it will be a price point. The base model will be under the $1,000 because it'll be interesting enough to try that. So as we know, I think the things we do know are it'll be tetherless, so no cable, 6 degrees of freedom, pass through AR with color. We know that that's coming. That's been announced. I think maybe the surprise part, I think, would be that it's not going to be focused on gaming. I think they're going to have killer applications for productivity. And I think because it's a pro device, they're going to target the business world around like meeting and doing like this kind of like whiteboarding, and they already have some of the foundations of that, but I think it'll enable killer as in like real use case kind of productivity type things that we haven't seen to that extent.
That makes sense.
So I think there'll be a bigger focus on that.
Yeah, maybe as I'm using the whiteboard, I can see someone else drawing on the same size whiteboard, so it feels like we're writing on the same whiteboard with my physical tactile feeling. And then someone else is on their whiteboard virtually.
Well, so we haven't actually tried this yet, but Horizon Workrooms does a lot of this where you can see your desk. They already can track a good number of keyboards. So if you have like a Logitech MX Keys keyboard, it actually is trackable. There's like a number of Logitech ones. Apple's keyboard, like the Magic Keyboard, is actually one that it recognizes. So it recognizes it, and it'll give you a virtual version of it, and you can see your fingers, and you can type, right? And then, so specific keyboards are compatible. And then you can also do pass-through right at the table. So I can say, only give me a rectangle where I can see my physical hands and keyboard. So I think that Horizon Workrooms will be a big part of it. You're right. I think it'll be multi-user like Horizon Workrooms does today, but it'll be like even more so. Maybe more from an AR, like the pass-through AR that they've been talking about. I think we'll see that. I also think that it'll enable a lot for Horizon Home. We saw like the videos about Horizon Home, and then what they actually launched wasn't that. It was like invite somebody in, but you can't really do anything. I think alongside the Quest Pro launch, they're going to say, oh, and you can bring in your NFTs now. Or in the same way that they have Instagram and Facebook now allow NFTs, I think that they might launch alongside it like a richer experience or a more immersive experience, multi-user experience for Horizon Home.
Got it.
So I think it's all going to be tied together, and it'd be like, if you want that, you have to have this pro device as opposed to this,
I think multi-user makes sense with the AR pass-through, right?
Yeah.
Because I can actually see you next to me without it being virtually represented. Like, they don't actually have to do that part anymore. I can just see like us in the space. I can also see a lot of pro use case. Like, we did cover last week about a special headset for the Air Force.
Yeah.
Now
specialized.
Instead of looking at the LCD screen for them, they can just with the actual hardware to control, just like your aircraft, but the visuals are actually immersive that you're in the air.
Yeah.
Instead of like looking at the screen in front of them, right? So
and I think that's the advantage of being so specific and tailored to an industry is that you can tailor the graphics and the experience and the features to the use case. That's not something the Quest has been able to do. They've been so generalized. Yeah. That's their biggest advantage, but it's also a disadvantage because it's like if they only did hand tracking and they didn't do control, then you cut out a whole bunch of games, right? Yeah. Or productivity, right? Right now you grab the controller and then you grab it on its back end and it becomes a marker. Right, you can't do that with your fingers quite yet. Yeah. And so there's still a lot of research and evolution of like UX and technology really that needs to happen to enable it to be really precise with things like hand tracking. Even though that's enabled, like really precise, like the precision of hand tracking, eye tracking, all that stuff that's coming. So
and that comes with better camera, better processing power. Yep. Yeah, everything that you can't really pack it into the price of the consumer friendly because they want the Meta Quest 2 to be more accessible version to a according to the VP, that equalize the field. But I think the pro is less about equalizing the field, but it's more about, okay, now how do we help the companies and education sectors and maybe like training sectors to be considering Quest Pro as the headset to go, instead of having to buy into very expensive specialized device that cannot be reused for anything else, right?
Yeah, it's like you have to like build a new headset, like a new hardware. Whereas you can say go with the high end. It's like what the Rift was, right? Oculus Rift was like really specialized, high end. You can get to really high end gaming experiences, but it was all tethered. There was disadvantages. So now they're basically saying like, hey, we have the Rift, but it's better, and we take away the cable. It's like, whoa.
And probably more battery capacity and everything that can be made to be affordable. Not affordable. You can afford to now pack more power and battery and pro needs.
Let me give you a scenario, and I want to hear what your answer is to this. So, let's say January 1 comes around. Meta says the device is $2,000. It's the Meta Quest 2. It's twice the cost of maybe what you thought. It's $2,000, but we really think we solved ergonomics. The battery life can be all day. Significant improvements from like ergonomic comfort, less eye fatigue, less motion sickness.
Visual, passing the visual Turing test.
Passing the visual. Let's say, hey, we really think we solved it, and we have these killer use cases. Like you can work virtually now, and you won't need physical monitors. You can work with monitors that are going to be just as good, and things like that. And the comfort is going to be there. Is that a device you would buy at that price point?
So, I would probably expense it through a company, honestly. I probably wouldn't personally get it, because in 2 or 3 weeks ago in our live show, we talked about the visual Turing test.
It's not there yet.
And it's not there yet, and we know that there is actually the future that's actually pretty bright. But Mark said those are research done to look ahead of next 5 years, and then that will become eventually more affordable and actually something that you can mass produce. So we know that
it's coming.
It's coming. Next 5-10 years, there's already the technology waiting for us, and you don't have to spend like a lot of money. And I think 2,000 is on the line of like,
that's a little much.
The little much personally. I'll buy a laptop at $2,000 because I know
the value and the productivity. Right?
Yeah. But I think we're still not there yet to. Let me phrase it this way. Personally, it's probably fun to use $2,000 device, but because our company and most of the companies have not adopted the working environment using the virtual environment,
culturally
it's not there. So if I know that by wearing $2,000 headset, I can do better collaborative work because all my other coworkers are, and I get recognized, right? It's the incentive of, do I make more money? Do I have a ladder for my career progression because I have a better hardware? Then it's an investment that you could almost say. It's like
you could justify the investment because there's enough ROI for you, right?
Yeah, just like
what's the return?
What's the return? Just like buying a nice suit. And if I was working in Japan, I'll probably invest in buying a nice suit because that directly helped me get to the better position in my work. So there's like more than just like personal fun. It affects my life in different ways. Then I'll probably go for 2,000. But as just a technology enthusiast, I don't think I can afford to keep up with the $2,000 every other device. But what about you, Johnny? I think I know the answer.
Yeah, I'd buy it for sure. I would buy it, and I think that would be pricey. I really don't think it'll be 2,000, but I think the fully spec'd out version with taxes, with the heads, with those
accessories,
with the straps and the accessories and the little whatever, it's going to be a $2,000 device. I would get it, and I think the reason for that is because. And I don't mean to say this in contrast, but more of like, for me personally, right? For me it's like I do want my hands on it because I'm really invested in like understanding what is the latest and greatest, what's the leading edge, bleeding edge, right? of where technology is. And I think that will be the most premium consumer adopted headset when it comes out. We don't even know all the specs yet.
Yeah.
We don't know what's happening, but I want to be able to be alongside that journey of it being a device that's going to be something we look back in history, right? To be like, I had my hands on that, I built that, and I just have constantly been like that in my life as early adopter of QR codes before they were ever used, and nobody even cared about them. Now it's like massive adoption everywhere. You see them almost daily, and like I'm thinking about smart glasses, AR glasses, like things like that have always been something I've adopted. So yeah, I think it would be, for me, the investment is more around being able to be a thought leader and subject matter expert in that space. And so the investment is like, I can't be a subject matter expert on the latest of the Meta Quest headset without having my hands on it. And like being a consumer, being somebody that creates, and being somebody that educates. And I think those are the three things that I like doing. It's not what we get to do.
Yeah. And by the way, Johnny does speak at events here in Austin, and you spoke.
I was in Houston.
Yep. And he's available. And when it comes to like the XR, MR, the extended reality and mixed reality, Metaverse, I think you're really invested in like UX and the experience of these fields a lot.
Yeah.
I think we also are taking on projects with the creation of Metaverse and also working with the hardware themselves.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, and it's less so about me saying, it's coming, it's time to invest. It's not, actually, for a lot of people, it's not time to invest. Just like how I see it as more closer to the consumer side, where like, oh, I don't know, maybe if everyone else adopts it, or if my boss recognizes that it's some valuable contribution to your career or something. Yeah, and I think that it's less so about me saying everyone needs to jump on board. Most of the time, my talks and stuff around business applications for AR, VR, or the Metaverse, that kind of thing, is less so about jump in now, and it's more about form a strategy, educate yourself. Here are the basic entry points for these technologies, right? So it probably won't be go buy a Meta Quest Pro. What it would be is, if you're in this industry doing these types of use cases, this is a killer device to help you do that today. But if you're in like this industry, it's not ready for you yet. Like maybe consulting, not ready for us yet, right? It might be killer for industrial applications. It might be killer for like
more special use case.
Specialized, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So. And in fact, we are working on some of the projects too. So if you have any business, we're ready to listen to your unique problems and consult on what we can do with that. The other, I think, side of the prediction that I want to touch on is the blockchain and Web3.
Yeah, let's dive into it.
Yeah, because that, I think, field is still growing. Yes, we do see the hype of the NFT or maybe some insane valuation in some of the technology are probably on the downhill right now. And I think we're going through the cycle of, okay, a lot of people experimented a lot and had some things built without foundation, and those are going to slow down and maybe disappear. But I think the ones that survive will come out with that, okay, these are actually really good use cases. Like we talked about Children's Hospital and how we can use it for mental health and all these health-related use cases that people are now starting to realize. In the blockchain, Web3, I think what's interesting is that in Q1 and Q2, we talked about few things around copyrights and legal and tax ramification of the blockchain. And one of the interesting highlight was Washington State passed a bill to create a special committee that advises how to incorporate blockchain Web3 technologies in the business of Washington State. And they're an official advisor for those businesses. And also we seen the draft of the bipartisan bill on looking at blockchain crypto as a commodity rather than security. That means it's not SEC, the stock exchange committee or security exchange committee. It's not the SEC, but it's handled by the commodity that handles like the wheat and oil. And major change is possibly coming where anything you spend less than $200 on, or any exchange that happens between $200, you don't have to report it as a tax. And that was, I know, somewhat difficult thing for a lot of consumers who got into the crypto last year because they had to report. I hope people report it on the tax.
Yep.
And if they didn't, government can still track you. So better to
there's time
report it. But the software, there are a few software that are like came out, and I tried a few of them, and they kind of worked. But I wish some of the bigger players like TurboTax would officially come in and solve the problem because I can trust them, and I know IRS would trust that more so than this random startup who's calculating the tax for us. But
that's probably better than manual.
Yeah,
it's a step up from you doing it yourself because it does simplify, but it's not quite the years of credibility like TurboTax.
Yeah, because what I found is depending on the software I use, they give me a different number for how much I gained or lost. And of course, as a consumer, I picked the software that gave me the ones that I pay least tax on, right? Because why not report to benefit myself, right? And if TurboTax or something come out possibly next year, that would be great. But I think the main underlying thing is it is going to be more integrated in our lives. In Q3, Q4, my prediction is at least some stores that we are frequenting might start to support payment via crypto and possibly start to advertise it a little bit more. But I think realistically it will be maybe 2024 when you really see mainstream regular coffee shops having it. The plan is that next year is probably when the bill really gets finalized. And following that, I think businesses will then take a year or two to actually react to the new bill update. I think these days a lot of businesses use Clover, Square, the modern cashier technology as opposed to the manual old POS system. So I'm pretty sure adapting is really fast, but there may need to be some hardware upgrade to support MetaMask payment or the Coinbase wallet payment. I don't know if those are supported today. Maybe if you have Apple, the latest Android phone that can do the MetaMask payment or something like that. So my prediction is that we'll start to see the glimpse of how crypto become closer to us than before. But because we just went through this, we're still in the middle of this downturn of the crypto, people are going to be maybe a little bit skeptical still to use the crypto, or they think that they don't want to spend their crypto to buy coffee because they are waiting for the valuation to kick back up towards the end of the year or 2023. But I think that's the main prediction that I have, that yes, there are a lot of applications that are doing Web3 cool stuff, but I think the major change is coming where it's integrated to daily lives. It's the people who haven't touched crypto before might get a glimpse of what it could be.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's my main opinion is basically on that last statement, is I think accessibility for those that haven't experienced the blockchain we're going to see easier entry for crypto wallets by Q4, before the end of the year. I think we're going to see, hopefully it's MetaMask or, Phantom, one of the bigger crypto wallets out there, but I think we'll see maybe easier accessibility, easier entry for my parents, maybe generations that may not understand it now. Not that all generations, obviously there's groups of people that are really deep into technology, but I would say I'm thinking about my own grandparents or stuff like that. I don't think we'll get that in Q4, but I think we'll start to see these crypto wallets become more accessible, where it's you don't have to worry about the Chrome extension or the having that all the hoops you have to go through to create an account, to transfer money, to do I think we'll see more and more ease of use for the crypto wallets, which would then be an entry point to NFT, crypto investment, that type of thing. But I don't think we're going to see upturn throughout the year. I think it's going to continue to go down. We're not at the bottom of the pit yet, and I think it'll flatten out slightly. But I do think my prediction is it will go back up. But a lot of the ones that had the utility, a lot of those that had the community, had the right roadmap, had the right founders, from an NFT standpoint, are going to rise. And I think that we'll probably see other blockchains like maybe Solana, maybe Algorand, like some of the different blockchains that are out there, we'll start to see those start to be a little bit more caught on because of gas fees, because of better on the environment, right? More and more projects that are being based in those, so I think we'll start to see more of that. But
yeah, and in the physical side of things, I'm also hoping to start to see the K-12 education starting to adopt more headset, AR, VR technologies into their education. At least like a temporary or supplemental. Like we watched a lot of movies back in the time in our history class of, through the DVD player, but what if I could watch my VR headset and actually feel what it's like to be in Egypt, what it's like to be in the Incas in like Mexico, right? Mm-hmm. And it will be more immersive experience. And it's still expensive enough that not everyone really can think to afford it, or because it's not required for their business or education, that nobody really has it in their home. We only still see, I think, 10 million headsets of a Quest. That's not enough for the entire population, right? But at least in a school, there could be like 30 headsets for a class to use. And now that we're coming out of the pandemic, right, there's less worry about, actually sharing the headset. Just wipe it, but it's safe enough now.
That would definitely still be like a hurdle, but it's less common, less so now.
Yeah, and Quest 2 came out 2 years ago, I believe. That was like right around when the pandemic started to happen. So I don't think the education sector had a chance to really incorporate it. But I think after summer is over, I like to see some schools, at least the ones that are more on the cutting edge side, to start adopt it. And in 2023, 2024, I want to see like more greater adoption. Just like iPad became the device, the textbook, right? Now they don't carry around like loads of textbook. They just carry tablets.
Yeah, most not, I wouldn't say all schools. There's still a lot of schools that don't adopt all the technology, but you have a large amount of schools now that do tablets, smart tablets, maybe Android, iPads. A lot of these big tech companies will have programs to like allow schools to do that. So I think, and I know Meta does that, right? I mean, they're the largest adoption by far of any headset. I think they like dominate the space by 80-90% of market share on VR headsets, Meta. So we'll see more and more of that. That's interesting about the K-12. My prediction is more on the university level. I have like a TikTok video that I talk about 10 metaversities are coming out in the fall. So I know in September, there's 10 universities that are adopting Metaverse.
The virtual universities.
Yeah, they're virtual universities, so it's less hardware-based. But I think where it's connected is, so it's through a platform called Engage VR or Engage XR. I think it's Engage XR is the Metaverse platform itself, and they particularly target education. And they are in the high school level and college level, but 10 universities are adopting, including Stanford University is one of them. And they have professors that are teaching in these virtual environments. So the entry point might be the browser. The entry point might be your phone. There might be some students that way. But most of the times that they do, like when a university adopts it, it comes along with the VR, the Meta headsets.
That would be so cool with the night school, because a lot of people, I think, now prefer to just attend the night school after you work from your home, right? Instead of then having to travel to school, university at night. One, it's kind of dangerous at night to be walking in most of the campus, right? And like now you have to find a parking, and you have to go through the traffic, and you might be working at home already. Why not just join the night class through a headset or browser and just continue? It's a kind of like an online college that was already there, but
that was accelerated. The online schooling. Obviously, that happened in I have people that I know that are teaching elementary school, first grade, second grade, to kids on Zoom, like into like the equivalent of like 2D kind of conferencing, and that's been really challenging. It's probably far-fetched to think that all schools will adopt it. There's probably some skepticism to be like, man, it didn't work for us super well to do like conferencing with like a Zoom, Google Meet, Microsoft Teams for our schools. Why would we now go into 3D? Right, but the entry point has become a lot easier for that. And so I think once that gets publicized a little bit better, people get educated better on what that might look like, that can be really valuable. But I predict more on the college level because of it being a type of hardware that like would require you to like download an application, log in, do some things, unless the teachers can like have them pre-made that way.
Right.
Then I agree though, in 2023, maybe end of 2023, 2024, definitely in the next 5 years, I know for a fact my kids will probably at some point in their schooling, they're going to be in some virtual
I was actually thinking they will be at school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they're having the headsets
on.
They have
the headset instead of watching.
Yeah, that might be.
Yeah.
That might be. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. And with IT person available at school.
Yeah, you'll have like the VR headset technician.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but it's kind of interesting that college would adopt it. It makes a lot of sense, and maybe a lot of boot camps might adopt that too.
Yeah.
One of the biggest benefits of the boot camp is that it's not just that you're learning online, that you also want to get close and make friends with your cohort, right? Because they're gonna help you actually refer you to the jobs when you go into the job market. Like it doesn't really end when you're done learning.
I don't know if everybody knows that.
Right,
that's a good point.
Right. Like it's a continuation of relationship you build with the teacher, the TA, your school friends. Because in fact, I know once one of the code camp grad get accepted at one job, they'll invite the cohort right from their classroom because they work together in the classroom, so they know to refer to the person. So I can see, okay, this code camp will cost you $25,000, and you will come with a headset, and this is how you interact with your cohort instead of them spending on the office building, right? That they have to rent.
Meet and network and all that.
Yeah, they can just do it virtually.
Yeah, I can see that. But I think this week, it's called the Magic League 2 is now available to consumers. So that's a Q3, not a prediction, but that just came out. My prediction is that won't get adopted widely. I think we won't get mass adoption. I think it'll be a slow adoption still. It's a great device and it's a lot better, and I'm excited to try it. But I think it's going to be less adopted until we can get killer use cases or mandatory work. They buy them all for the office and they find the right applications for it. It might be a little bit of time still, but it's still a really innovative device. So I think we'll see pretty low adoption.
Yeah.
Definitely under like the Quest headsets.
Yeah. I think the key takeaway is in 2022, I don't think we will see massive change in adoption in the hardware. I think we'll see a lot of projects sunsetting, and we might start to see some interesting news or horizon to the future coming out. Like, the Meta just revealed this cool stuff, or Apple more leaks around the mixed reality. But I don't think we're gonna see major stuff for the rest of the year as something that we can hands on. I think it's 2023, where
spring or fall,
where I think we see a lot of hardware problem gets resolved and they're ready to release. Businesses are finally going back more back into the physical world, but people are still finding ways to do education online, and that start to become normalized.
Yeah.
But I don't think my prediction would be that there's probably not too much change happening in our daily lives.
Yeah, I agree, and I think just to compare that to maybe one company with Apple, for example, adoption of new hardware verticals. So when they launched the iPad, that didn't get adopted widely. Mass adoption, 50 million, took them years for iPad. Took them years for the watch. The watch took longer, right? And now if you look back, it's how many people have Apple? It's the most adopted by far the smart watch that exists. Obviously, there are Android devices, really cool ones coming out. Actually, there are other ones like the Pebble watch and the Garmin watches and stuff. But the Apple Watch by far is the most adopted, and it definitely is mass adopted. But it took a few years, and I think people wanted to be does it have enough use case for me? Does it actually integrate to the extent that I want it? Does it benefit me from like a health perspective enough? Does it benefit me from a fitness perspective? The killer use cases were things like, hey, you can now track your heart rate. You can now do your O2 sensor, your ECG, your ECG, the fitness rings, right? Less so about answering text messages, although there's convenience. It was starting to get to, again, killer use cases that starts to hit a lot of demographics. Yeah. And then you have like the ones from September of last year where they say, hey, we're releasing cheaper watches for younger kids, and you can put data on them, and they can be really tailored for children. You can monitor everything, and they can call you during emergencies. Like, boom, use case for kids now, right? And so you start, I think we're going to see the same trend, similar to adoption of the iPad and Apple Watch and a lot of these new technology verticals. We're going to see the same with things like the Magic Leap, HoloLens 2, Project Cambria, probably Apple's first headset. All of these will not get mass adopted right away. It's going to be slightly adopted, slight improvements, fixing the problems, and then a big ramp up. And then it's going to go, once you start seeing it everywhere, right? The way that you can see almost anybody in this building right now, a big majority of them have some smartwatch on their wrist. When it starts to become culturally accepted, and you have those killer use cases, then we start to see that wider adoption.
Yeah, on that note, my prediction will be the 3 to 5 year range that we're looking at. For
to get to 50 million?
Yeah, probably for mixed reality to be the norm. I think we're getting to that. But I think we're still a little bit in the early stage of like, now we start to see the stabilize, like what you start to know what you can expect. And then now it's just going to be adding more use cases. Yep. Just like Apple Watch, you started with the low battery, just dies in 8 hours, and like, well, this is useless too. Like, this runs really well, and he can do this, and he can do this. But I think we can close.
Yeah, that's great. I loved your predictions on looking at Q3, Q4, as well as kind of looking back a little bit through Q1, Q2. So to wrap us up, I guess, definitely subscribe to our YouTube channel. Find us on LinkedIn for Fresh Labs. Same name on both YouTube and LinkedIn. We have personal accounts as well where we kind of cover some things around these topics. But
and we'll be back at the regular cadence starting next week again. But this was a special episode that we got to film together. Hopefully the audio wasn't too bad. Had a little mess up. Maybe you had a wrong YouTube link or something, but hopefully you can rewatch, including past episodes. I think those are really good. Right. So we'll hope to see you guys again next week, same time, noon PST or 2 p.m. in the Central Time Zone.
Correct. Thank you so much for joining.
See you.